Hey, this is Austin with Mambo Woodworks. I decided to try my hand at a little bit more DIY kind of project here. Made a stand for my dog's food bowls. It's really easy. All you need is a jigsaw there, but I use the tools in my shop because I've got them. But I try to demystify it, make it something you could do on the weekend. Honestly, front to back, this thing was probably 3.5 hours long. It was a lot of fun to make. I'm glad I did it. Something you could do on the weekend. Thanks for coming by. Like and subscribe. Mambo Woodworks. So I got these Harmony bowls super cheap at Petco, $5.99 or so. Make sure you measure them the right way. That's the outer diameter there, and then that little lip. So subtract the lip, and then once you get that, you can make your marks on your workpiece. Now this is a piece of plywood I use as a jig. You do not need to do this step. I kind of transferred it, but that piece right there is the 1x12 that I picked up at Home Depot. So I traced my circle onto that piece. And then I came back and just made myself a little safety marking here for the legs, so I knew where they were going to be and I could kind of size out the whole stand. When you're cutting out the circles, you don't need to do what I'm about to do. You have to start it like this. So I used a Forstner bit, you could use a drill bit, but then come back with the jigsaw. And when you're doing this project, if you don't have a router table or a Flush-trim bit, you can do the entire thing just like this. Use a jigsaw, cut slowly, cut carefully, cut a little bit closer to the line, and you'll be just fine. Especially if you're good with it and you can practice a little bit. I, on the other hand, am trying to make many of these. So I have this little jig and a Flush-trim bit, and that's how I speed this process up for myself. So I'm making it as quick as I can and getting a really perfect circle. So I can be a little sloppy on the first one, and then I can come back and clean it up here. Now, building the base is going to be different for both of us. You can get the 2x2 wood at a big box store and not have to do this next step. I didn't have any, didn't want to make another trip, so I came with a 2x4, cut one flat edge, and then I went ahead and ripped it right down the middle. They ended up being about 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, but 2x2 would work just fine as well. It's not a big deal. You're not carrying a lot of weight with this, so I cut those down to 11.25 inches. Again, that's kind of the height for my dog. Brought it back over and sized it up with the whole workpiece here. I was careful to make sure I got the long sides of the apron, the front and the back, as accurate as possible, and then I sized the sides. So I brought a little scrap piece of plywood over here just to check it out, and then eventually took it over and started to do the pocket holes, which you also don't have to do. Again, I went way overkill with this. I was trying to just see what my process looked like for the first one, but you could easily use wood glue and it would have no problem at all. I did use a little reveal on the front of the apron. That's what that walnut is on the bottom. It's about 1/8 inch, and I just wanted there to be a little overhang for aesthetics. Alright, so I put the pocket holes together on the inside of the legs here, and one of the things I noticed was that this actual bracing across that apron is a lot thicker than I would have wanted it. So if I do this project again, and I certainly will, I'm going to do it with much more narrow apron. Maybe this is 3.5 inches. Probably I'm cutting that in half, maybe 2 inches. Just feel like it's a big look. I also realized, and this is still not, I haven't attached it yet. I'm going to finish it in a second. But I noticed that I made the actual top of this a little bit smaller than I would have liked. So you can see that overhang. The dimensions don't look great. I might end up actually going back and making a larger top of these, especially since I have the jig. It'll take me 10 minutes to get that done. It won't change anything about how these bowls fit into the actual holes that were designed to carry them. For the size bowls that I got, just standard pet food, pet store stuff. So yeah, once I figure that out, figure out if I want to do it, I might just leave it for now, but next time I'll be sure to do a better job of that. I'm going to finish them separately. So I'm going to do a dark walnut on this and then cover it with a polyurethane to make sure that the water from the dog doesn't get all over it or hurt it. And then I'm going to paint the entire bottom, the entire base, the legs, the apron with just a standard white latex house paint. I feel like that's going to be a solid enough look. It'll seal it. White latex paint does a pretty good job. And I know this isn't going to be out in the elements. Am I going to be really beat up if it gets a little hurt by dogs? No, of course not. But I also would rather not have to come back and refinish it or fix it again. So one and done anyway. Fairly quick construction project, but again, I'm not sure if I'm done yet. We'll find out. I definitely made a second top. I wanted a little more overhang, so that's a separate piece that I didn't show in the first part. I ended up doing 2 coats of this stain, lay it on thick, wipe off the excess, come back an hour later, lay it on thick, etc. Repeat those steps twice. And then here was the white paint. I went ahead and put 2 coats of this on as well. I think 15 minutes between each coat. Dries pretty quickly. There it is, that Rustoleum stuff. And then I left all that stuff to dry overnight. I'm not going to put the polyurethane on the top if that stain is still kind of curing. It'll foul it up. So I laid on my polyurethane here pretty evenly. I go heavy on the first coat because I know I'm going to sand a lot of the top of it off. So then I was sure to get all the end grain and stuff, and then let it sit overnight, let it cure up. That first coat takes the longest to set. So there are the pocket holes, one of the 50 I drilled into the bottom of this thing. Way overkill, you don't need to do that at all. Definitely glue would have been just fine. I'm very happy with how this turned out. It's a simple project, it's a weekend project. You really, can't go wrong with it. Your dog will love it, and if you want to make them as gifts, they're really easy and fun to do. Again, all you need is a jigsaw. So I use some of my toys in here, but you just need a jigsaw, and you can get this done with a little time, some basic carpentry skills, and then you'll have a nice final product like this. So go on by the website. You can pick out the color of the base, the color of the top, the color of the bowls, anything you want. Like and subscribe. Thanks for coming. Mambo Woodworks.